Whenever you're ready. Okay, thank you. Good evening, everyone. I ask everyone to please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Mayor Griffin,
Here.
Councilmember Lizzo. Here. Councilmember Sears.
Here.
Councilmember Wertz.
Here.
Councilmember Zimmer.
Here.
Councilmember Dewey.
Here.
Councilmember Gibbons. Here.
Thank you. Just want to recognize and welcome Sarah White
Mayor.
sitting in with us tonight. Nice to have you here. We have one public hearing tonight, which is a request for zoning code text amendment regarding the applicability of architectural review. Sarah, do you have any exhibits to enter into the record?
Yes, Mayor, I do. Exhibit 1 is the affidavit of publication verifying this public hearing appeared in the Webster Kirkwood Times. Exhibit 2 is the July 20th, 2023 report of the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting, noting that by a vote of 6-0, the commission recommended approval of the text amendment. Exhibit 3 is a memorandum to the Planning and Zoning Commission dated July 19th, 2023 regarding the text amendment. Exhibit 4 is the memorandum to the mayor and city council dated August 17th, 2023 regarding the text amendment. And Exhibit 5 is the Kirkwood Code of Ordinances amending the provisions of Chapter 25 regarding architectural review.
Sarah, Russ, who will present this to city council?
That'll be the city's Planning and Development Services Director, Jonathan Raish.
Welcome, Jonathan.
Good evening. Thank you, Mayor, City Council. So tonight we have, as was stated, a zoning code text amendment that's been initiated by staff. And it's regarding the ARB review process. So staff initiated this, a review of this section of the code with an intention of streamlining the permit review for applicants that are conducting minor work. Recommendations were presented to the Architecture Review Board and the Planning and Zoning Commission. At the Architecture Review Board stage, there was a minor revision recommended by that board, and it's been incorporated in the documents you have tonight for consideration. Both the Architecture Review Board and the Planning and Zoning Commission recommended approval at their meetings. Tonight, I'll go through some of the details, but staff, as I mentioned in my memo, we've included one reference in this presentation that was not part of the presentation to the ARB and Planning and Zoning Commission previously, which is the cross-reference to the proposed Landmarks and Historic Preservation Commission ordinance. So while that's going to be considered a whole separate night, and I don't want to get into the details of that, those revisions, that ordinance went through a separate review committee consisting of city council reps and Landmarks Commission representatives. Was conducted over about a year and was presented to city council about a year ago. So at the time that staff presented to the Architectural Review Board and Planning and Zoning Commission for these changes, that was put on hold. And so staff is now recommending that the reference to the new code be considered at this time in anticipation that the Landmarks and Historic Preservation Code revisions will be discussed by the council in the near future. So if there are questions about that, I can answer, but we're trying to time it all together as they've come together. So with that background and intro, just a brief summary of the categories of these changes. So the revisions were to revise the list of minor projects that are exempt from review by the Architectural Review Board, and I'll get into list those in the next slide, to clarify language to be consistent with other code sections and use terminology that's specifically defined in our code. I point out here that it does not change the difference between advisory or binding review, so nothing is changing in that regard with these revisions. It also makes the time limit for sign permit review by the Architecture Review Board 21 days, which is actually consistent with our procedure section of the code. When we changed things, it was referenced a couple different places and we're trying to clean that up now. And lastly, it would, as I mentioned, the goal to create consistency with the proposed Landmarks or Historic Preservation Ordinance, which we'll talk about. So that would again, I don't want to get down that rabbit hole, but if those revisions are approved, it would remove ARB review from single family projects that are required to be solely reviewed by the Landmarks and Historic Preservation Commission. Again, that's not what we're discussing tonight, but the revision is to make these two, we're having the public hearing tonight for this change and trying to make sure that these things work together as they go forward. So just calling that out. Let's see. So. All right, so you probably all can't read that, but I apologize. I don't even know if I can read it on my paper. So I will just try to briefly walk through these one by one because they are. So this is the list of activities that are exempt from review by the Architectural Review Board, right? So if somebody submits a building permit for one of these items, they would not be required to go to the Architectural Review Board. Okay. So as I mentioned, the first one listed there is any application that is required to be reviewed solely by the city's Historic Preservation Commission, also known as the Landmarks Commission now. Okay, mentioned that one a couple of times. Next one is, and the existing text is in black and red line is the addition. So existing painting or general maintenance of a structure. We've added the text that says for projects previously approved by the ARB as a binding decision, said painting shall be of a color similar to what was indicated on the approved design to be considered as an exempt activity. A lot of words. All it means is for projects, commercial projects, if they have an approved elevation that's been approved by the Architectural Review Board, on the next day, we don't want them to be able to go back and just paint it a whole different color because that seriously changes the elevation of the building. So the language that was in there previously made it sound like painting or general maintenance is exempt, period. We've added this clause because actually this is the way I've interpreted it anyway. I've told people that if you have approved elevations and you want to change the color, you have to go back. So this is trying to give me a little more teeth, I guess. Next one is changes in occupancy not involving exterior work. So we just struck some language there that was a little confusing for clarity's sake. Hopefully that makes sense. But so if there's changing an occupancy of a building that you're not doing any exterior work, you may have to get a permit for interior work or an occupancy permit, but that's not gonna trigger Architectural Review Board review. Next item is that any interior renovation that will not alter and or affect the exterior elevations and facade of the building or structure of any exterior architectural features or exterior building elements. This is one example where we used language that is defined, the exterior building elements, it's defined in the code. We wanted to use more precise language and get rid of some of the ambiguity. So next is the following ones are completely new items that, again, to be completely honest, some of these are what staff have interpreted over the past few years in doing this. So we're trying to get these in writing. So first one is minor alterations or expansions in fenestrations, which are windows or doors, as determined by the Planning Development Services Director. So it may happen where usually the Architecture Review Board encourages more windows, right? Breaking up the facade of a building, more windows, more doors. So this is a case where when somebody comes in and wants to increase the size of one of those things, but keep the same style, staff would be able to approve that without going to the Architecture Review Board. Currently, they would technically have to go just by increasing the size of a window, even if they're matching style. So we're trying to give ourselves a little more, again, streamline the process for applicants when it's appropriate. And I'll reiterate at this point, Architecture Review Board has reviewed these and agreed with staff's recommendations. The next item are single-family residential decks that are not covered by a roof, pergola, or similar structure, are not visible from the street on which the house is addressed, do not include a chimney and or fireplace wall, and are no taller than 8 feet above grade as measured from the average adjacent grade to the top of the floor of the proposed decking. I mentioned that the Architecture Review Board made one change when this came before them. They added the clause in there about as long as it does not include a chimney and or fireplace wall. We've seen a lot of those lately, and they feel like they want to review those because they're a more prominent feature. It's a larger mass and everything. And so they wanted to reserve the right to review those. Next item is roof mounted solar energy systems, which include panels and panel frames that are a color which complements the underlying roof. This is another item where these have been going to the Architectural Review Board, and there's not a whole lot we can do with them. We want to encourage renewable energy, obviously. And so the board may make some comments about, well, can you get those away from the front of the house? And the answer is always, no, that's where the sun is and that's where we need them. And so what the board does typically is recommend that they match the roof or blend in usually a darker color to match the darker roof. So if, and again, this was all discussed, if they come in with a permit that does that already, they would not have to go to the Architectural Review Board. Next is in-kind repair or replacement of exterior building elements of the same material, finish, configuration, and color. I think that's self-explanatory. Swimming pools, again, not one that we have taken to the Architecture Review Board historically, but wanted to put it down there in the list to make it explicitly clear. Accessory structures equal to or less than 120 square feet in area and 12 feet in height when accessory to 1 and 2 family structures. So these are actually exempt from building permit requirements, which exempts them from ARB review unless you have electric or plumbing. So just because you have one of these and it may have our electricity or plumbing in it, we're saying that shouldn't make you go to the board. You know, it's still the same structure. You may have to get a building permit because it has electricity or plumbing, but if you didn't have that, you wouldn't be going to the board. So why are we making you go to the review board anyway? The Architecture Review Board was in favor of that as well. Next is retaining walls, except those constructed of poured concrete that are greater than 2 feet tall as measured from grade. So the two main types of retaining walls are a poured concrete retaining wall and a modular wall. Our Architecture Review Board standards, design standards have modular walls listed as the recommended because they have variety, texture, depth, and all that. So the only ones that the Architecture Review Board would be reviewing are poured concrete, so like a flat finish that are greater than 2 feet. And that's usually when they get into stamping or something like that to help make it more architecturally appealing. Next item are fences. Again, we have not ever taken fences to the Architecture Review Board, but we're making it clear while we're making these revisions. And lastly, improvements that only require a mechanical permit. Also an item that we have not taken traditionally, but while we're revising the list, we wanted to put it on there. So thanks for bearing with me on those. So just as a reminder, this is a zoning code text amendment request that staff initiated. We have 4 criteria in the code when we're considering text amendments. In my opinion, the most relevant here is that the proposed amendment is consistent with comprehensive plan, other adopted city plans, and the stated purpose of this code. So we're really working on just improving our architectural review standards. And that's something that the city has stood by for a while now. So as I mentioned, Planning and Zoning Commission recommended approval unanimously. The Architectural Review Board did as well. And that is all I have.
Jonathan?
Yep.
Before we go to questions for Jonathan, what we're going to do is the first reading of this bill and the landmarks revision will be September 21st. But on September 7th, we're going to have a work session so people can get re-familiar with the landmarks changes and how it does or doesn't fit with it. So September 7th work session, first reading on both September 21st. Questions for Jonathan? Councilman, you.
No,
Oh, okay.
I had already emailed Jonathan just about, the language, and we were
Okay.
talking about Historic Preservation Commission and how are we going to handle that? But
Okay.
he already answered that, so I have no questions.
Okay.
Thank you.
One, Councilmember Gibbons.
Well, I wondered if this exemption of accessory structures for 120 square feet, and it made me think about the Bodley garage that was elevated. I forget how. Would that, or any correlation between this being taken out and what happened on Bodley?
No. Yeah, I don't know the exact size of that structure. So 10 by 12 is what is 120 square feet. So it's not enough to fit a car. It's a shed type thing. So, and
Okay.
yeah, so.
All right. Councilmember Wertz.
This is just for my clarification. So number one, and the first change, the painting one. Yeah, thanks. So you mentioned it was commercial only. That is the addition. Is that assumed because it's a binding decision that only commercial projects are part of the binding decision?
Exactly right.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly right.
Dusting off the cobwebs.
Mhm.
And then I think that's all I have for now. Thank you.
Do we have anyone wishing to speak on this?
Mayor and council, there are no requests for comment at this time.
All right. Being nothing further from the council, this public hearing is closed. And first reading on this will be at our meeting on September 21st. Thank you. I'll move to public comments.
The public comments portion of the meeting is an opportunity for the city council to listen to comments from citizens. It is not a question and answer session, and the city council will not respond to comments or answer questions during this period. The mayor may refer any matter brought up to the city council to the chief administrative officer or city clerk if action is needed.
You?
Mayor and council, there is a request from John Burns.
Welcome, John.
Good evening. Hello, everybody. John Burns, 1881 Charmwood Court, Kirkwood. I'm here to speak about the Kirkwood street lighting. Well, I thought it was an ordinance, but they're talking about the purchase of street lights. And I found out today that this is post lighting and it's down in the city, most of it. And from all I read, I highly recommend that you consider something less than 4,000 K. If you look at all the developers' lighting proposals for buildings, it's a golden warm glow. It's probably 2,500 K or less. And here we're proposing 4,000 K, which does have blue light, by the way. Even 3,000 K has some blue light. It's a variety of waves that are combined to approximate a black body emitter at a temperature of 3,000. So for 3,000 K, 4,000 K is got more blue light. 5,000 has a lot. So if you want warmth but good visibility, because 3,000 K is got very good visibility, then I would recommend going to 3,000 or even less if you want that nice look that the developers show you. So I'm going to read a little bit. In my job, I was responsible for about $50 million annually in utilities. I was plant manager of utilities and energy management. I also was the president of the St. Louis chapter of the Energy Association of Energy Engineers. And these kind of issues on lighting, every year we had talks on lighting. So talking about LEDs. Historically, the first LED lighting was installed in Ann Arbor in 2006. At that time, not much was known about color because most lighting didn't have a color spectrum to choose from. At that time, there was little known about color. LEDs began replacing a variety of lamp elements, low pressure, high pressure sodium, incandescent. Low pressure, high pressure sodium are respectively 1,800 K and 2,100 K. So that's pretty far down from 3,000. And I'd say the low pressure sodium, the 1,800 K, was a problem with visibility. And that's why Missouri Department of Transportation went to the high pressure sodium, which was the 2,200 K, somewhere in that range. Let's see. So LED lighting became overwhelming choice, and it brought with it a challenge of what color to use. Communities experimented with color choices, and critical studies began to emerge on what color would be best. So 2014, the city of Davis, California, just months after installing 4,000 K, asked that the city replace it with 3,000 K. They felt the light was very harsh, and they did. They spent $350,000 months after they had spent the money to install these lights. 2016, the American Medical Association came out and recommended 3,000 K or less for human health reasons, mostly about sleep patterns, glare, and eye fatigue, not about some electronic, magnification, the high voltage lights that give out things like that. There is a 5,000 K LED. I can't even read my writing. We'll forget that. 2020, around that time, the Missouri Department of Transportation switched from high pressure sodium lights to 3,000 K LEDs. I have a statement from the Missouri Department of Transportation. We have used 3,000 K ever since and have had no plans to change. The U.S. Department of Transportation have published a lighting primer in April of 2022, and they recommend between 3,000 and 4,000. The higher ends might be for high speed like highway, and the lower end is, they actually recommend in communities that 3,000 or less, and you might consider less depending upon your application, like parking lots and other things that don't require any speed of long distance recognition. 3,000 or less than 3,000 K might be more comfortable. 2023, I have an Ameren memo to the city of Brentwood. These are in writing. Since June 21, 2021, Ameren, Missouri began purchasing and installing bracket mounted lights that are rated 3,000 K. These lights are efficient and are currently industry standard, unquote. Now, I heard today that that wasn't true, and I've called a friend from Ameren, and they are going to get back to me, but obviously he's at the ballgame tonight, so we're not going to hear from him for a while. 2023, last week, I happened to have my eye checkup, and I asked the ophthalmologist about light color, and he said it's pretty well-established fact in their industry that as the light color goes up, you get more glare. So for older people, glare is, especially if you have the beginnings of cataracts, you're going to get that glow around your eye, and that happens more and with higher color. So they think lower color is better for visibility. Fog lights, they're yellow. Most of them are. Now there are some white fog lights, but fog lights are usually yellow because they prevent flashback of light and glare in your eyes. And also an article I read on that the sources this investigator had said that your pupil tends, with more blue light, tends to constrict. And so if you think 4,000 K is brighter or you can see more, there's this false impression that because your pupil starts to constrict and lets in less light. A 3,000 K won't constrict as much and you'll get more light in. So your perception of depth goes, actually is where it's compromised. I don't know. It didn't say. 2023, Brentwood passed an ordinance limiting street lighting to 3,000 K. And that's where I got the Ameren memo about their 3,000 K. Kirkwood lighting ordinance should include a specific lamp color, I think, going forward. We bought a lot of 4,000 K, installed them. That's done. And I think you can't say anything about it. It is, and 4,000 K is not horrific, but it is harsh, much harsher than 3,000 K. And one other point, lumens, when you talk about which is brighter, which can you see more, that depends on the efficiency of the light. So if 3,000 K is a little less efficient and you put a little more current in it, you're going to get just as much brightness, much lumens as you would with 4,000 K. Color is not a variable for light brightness. So I could keep talking, but thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Mayor and council, there are no additional comments.
David? Move on to the consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve?
Motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Questions or comments? All right, seeing none, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. All opposed say no. Consent agenda passes. Move to unfinished business, Bill 10994.
Mayor and council, this is an ordinance amending Chapter 5, Article 2, Sign Code, Sections
5-10A, 5-12, 5-14T, 5-16B, 5-17, 5-18A, and 5-20 of the Code of Ordinances, City of Kirkwood, Missouri.
Are there any questions or comments? All right, seeing none, roll call, please.
Mayor Griffin,
Yes.
Councilmember Lizzo,
Yes.
Councilmember Sears,
Yes.
Councilmember Wertz,
Yes.
Councilmember Zimmer,
Yes.
Councilmember Dewey,
Yes.
Councilmember Gibbons.
Yes.
Bill passes. Bill 10995.
Mayor and Council, this is an ordinance readopting a procedure to disclose potential conflicts of interest and substantial interests for certain officials as set forth in Chapter 2, Article 1, Section 2.5 of the Kirkwood Code of Ordinances.
Any questions or comments? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Mayor Griffin,
Yes.
Councilmember Lizzo,
Yes.
Councilmember Sears,
Yes.
Councilmember Wertz,
Yes.
Councilmember Zimmer,
Yes.
Councilmember Dewey,
Yes.
Councilmember Gibbons.
Yes.
Bill passes. Resolution 87, 2023.
Mayor and Council, this is a resolution accepting the bid of city lighting products in the amount of $159,571.50 for the purchase of LED streetlights for the electric department and authorizing and directing the Director of Procurement to issue a purchase order.
Is there a motion for approval?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion is second. I'm just going to say briefly, there's a lot of information that is out there on this. And for at least for this resolution, I think we need to rely on our two directors of electric and public services for their recommendations. So I am going to vote in favor to purchase them and purchase this per the resolution. Other questions, comments from council? Let's see. Councilmember Sears. That's right. Yeah. All right. Councilmember Sears. Yeah.
Yes, I agree with you, Mayor. I believe that, and I really did appreciate the presentation we just got. I think that was very well done, well presented. And I listened very carefully. In the end, though, you know, we have information we've seen. The information you referred to, which indicates that there are that basically other communities don't like it, and that's one thing that it shows, and that there's some concern. I believe that the concern ratchets up much higher than at levels much higher than what we're talking about. We've had these around town. There have been some people complain about it, but the complaints have been, it's in my yard or it's in my house or something. And for the most part, from what I've heard, our electric company continues to be willing to go out and modify the hoods on the lights in neighborhoods to reduce that or eliminate it from happening. And so I'm glad that they do that, and they need to continue to help consumers out or citizens out in that respect. But in the end, we have people on staff who have made recommendations, who have told us this is the safest for the uses to which these will be put. This is the safest lighting. We aren't talking about putting them, you know, indoors in places where people are reading, places where people are trying to fall asleep or so, you know, you know, which is a whole other area. And we don't have an ordinance, which I think would be the appropriate place to debate. If we're serious about wanting to discuss that, I think an ordinance would be the appropriate place to debate that and set standards. Not when we're going to buy, you know, $160,000 worth of bulbs. So anyway, it's a long-winded way of saying I've listened to everything I've read everything. I appreciate it. And I think my vote is to go forward with this purchase.
Anyone else from council? Okay, Councilmember Gibbons.
Well, I appreciate your comment, Councilmember Sears, that it should probably be an ordinance discussion instead of the purchase of this, except that I feel pretty strongly, as I mentioned earlier today, that the lighting that we're talking about will have the same effect as far as lighting the area. It's just the color of the light is softer on everyone's eyes, what have you. So I appreciate John coming and speaking and letting us know some more information. Chris, thank you for the work that you do. And I'm sorry, but I'm going to be voting no on this because I feel like it's something that the city should be really taking a look at in our codes.
Else from council? All right. Seeing nothing, roll call, please.
Mayor Griffin,
Yes.
Councilmember Lizzo,
Yes.
Councilmember Sears,
Yes.
Councilmember Wertz,
Yes.
Councilmember Zimmer,
Yes.
Councilmember Dewey,
Yes.
Councilmember Gibbons.
No.
Resolution passes. We'll move to new business 10996.
Mayor and Council, this is an ordinance vacating a 10-foot wide easement as recorded in deed book 12599, page 1967 of the St. Louis County records to be vacated, being located in Lot 2 of Walther subdivision, a subdivision according to the plat thereof as recorded in Plat Book 206, pages 53 and 54, located in section 12, township 44 north, range 5 east of the 5th principal meridian located in the city of Kirkwood, St. Louis County, Missouri, is more particularly described on exhibits A and B attached hereto and incorporated by reference herein.
Is there a motion for approval?
Motion.
A
Second.
motion and a second. Are there any questions or comments?
Okay, so
Councilmember
one thing,
Sears?
just generally not on this particular, because I'm gonna vote in favor of this. I think though that I just wanted to point out that in my job, I see easements that are in place on people's properties all the time that should have been abandoned for centuries. You know, they were initially put there when the city was platted, maybe. So people have streets and all kinds of things through their property. And I think it's a really important thing for councils when we have the opportunity and these come up to make sure that when we don't need an easement and there's not a foreseeable need for that easement in the future, that we take these actions because it cleans up the property records for the person who owns the property. Because right now, you know, they're restricted in how they can use it, even though nobody's been interested in that strip. Maybe I don't know about this particular situation, but in 150 years.
Mhm.
So I just.
Thank you for that. All right. Anything else? Councilmember Zimmer?
Yeah, just to mention, and I appreciate those comments, Councilmember Sears, but this was this was an easement that was discovered that had not been vacated previously. So, you know, I don't think anything nefarious. It was just they discovered that it wasn't vacated. And you're right, it's a good idea to clean this up. So.
All right. Seeing nothing else, all in favor of first reading, please say aye.
Aye.
Say no. A bill passes first reading. Resolution 95, 2023.
Mayor and Council, this is a resolution accepting the bid of J.W. Bomarito Construction in the amount not to exceed of $200,084, which includes a contingency of $18,189 for North Kirkwood Road water main replacement, and authorizing and directing the mayor to enter into a contract.
Is there a motion for approval?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Mhm.
Oh.
Yep.
Got a motion and a second. Any questions or comments? Councilmember Gibbons?
Well, I'm just wondering, it says it's going to tie into the Essex, what's going on in Essex. Is this going to delay Essex in any way? And when will this start? And how will that work?
My understanding is it's not going to delay any aspect of the Essex project. But it will be tied into it. It's a separate project on its own, however.
All right, roll call, please.
Mayor Griffin.
Yes.
Councilmember Lizzo,
Yes.
Councilmember Sears,
Yes.
Councilmember Wertz,
Yes.
Councilmember Zimmer,
Yes.
Councilmember Dewey,
Yes.
Councilmember Gibbons.
Yes.
Resolution passes. Resolution 96, 2023.
Mayor and Council, this is a resolution authorizing the filing of an application with the Municipal Park Grant Commission of St. Louis County to fund improvements to Little Mitchell Park in the city of Kirkwood, St. Louis County, Missouri.
Is there a motion for approval?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
A motion is second. Questions or comments? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Mayor Griffin.
Yes.
Councilmember Lizzo,
Yes.
Councilmember Sears,
Yes.
Councilmember Wertz,
Yes.
Councilmember Zimmer,
Yes.
Councilmember Dewey,
Yes.
Councilmember Gibbons.
Yes.
Resolution passes. Resolution 97, 2023.
Mayor and Council, this is a resolution accepting the proposal of Tyler Technologies at the rates provided in the rate sheet, copy of which attached here to and incorporated by reference herein, for a gateway payment vendor system for the ERP system, and authorizing and directing the mayor to enter into a contract.
A motion for approval?
So moved.
Is there a A motion is second. Any questions or comments? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Mayor Griffin.
Yes.
Councilmember Lizzo,
Yes.
Councilmember Sears,
Yes.
Councilmember Wertz,
Yes.
Councilmember Dewey,
Yes.
Councilmember Gibbon, Councilmember, sorry, did I skip you, Mark? Sorry, I apologize. Councilmember Zimmer,
Yes, thank you.
Councilmember Dewey again,
Yes.
apologize, Councilmember Gibbons.
Yes.
Resolution passes. Resolution 98, 2023.
Mayor and Council, this is a resolution accepting the bid of Global Rental Company Incorporated in the amount of $277,850 pursuant to a Sourcewell cooperative contract for the purchase of a 2025 aerial service truck for the electric department, and authorizing and directing the Director of Procurement to issue a purchase order.
Is there a motion for approval?
Motion.
Second.
And a motion is second. Questions or comments?
I just had a question about, so in the legislation request on alternatives available, it talks about retaining vehicles beyond their lifespan hinders service delivery and hurts our trade-in value. Just wondering, so this purchase price does not include trade-in, correct?
Correct.
So can you just give me an idea of how much the truck that we're gonna trade in might?
Oh, I don't have that in front of me at this point, but I will tell you that our Fleet Services Department does an analysis of all assets, and they have a formula that they run everything through with regard to exactly how much maintenance costs are increasing on a given year, combined with the amount of depreciation of that asset on a year-to-year basis, to try to identify the point at which they cross, and you have an equilibrium or a point of elasticity, I guess is the best way I would put it, where it identifies the time at which selling is in your best interest.
Mm-hmm. Well,
I
just
don't
you
have
don't
that
have any
exact number in
ballpark,
front of
like
me right
it's
now.
4 figures, 5 figures, 6 figures, whatever.
I wouldn't want to hazard a guess.
Okay. Well, I am curious how much we're gonna get for our old truck.
I can
that we're
talk to
gonna
our
trade
fleet
in.
man tomorrow, and maybe I can get you that. as
It's
an
just a
email.
matter of curiosity. It's not gonna, I'm just wondering how much, I mean, are they, I mean,
send-
some other
I'll
city
send out
might
what
buy
we,
it.
what we believe we can get for our existing and send it to council.
Okay, thank you.
Thinking about an aerial truck for your husband, Mark, to drive,
We have some trees that we need taking down, and if it's like, it could be a cherry picker kind of thing, I'll get them out
There
there.
you go.
Yeah.
Councilmember Gibbons.
Does our, I don't remember what department it is that takes care of trucks and fire trucks and
Fleet?
do they do the maintenance on these as well?
Yes, ma'am.
I mean, I think that's a good time to mention that, the city does a good job of not only taking care of our vehicles, but also other cities' vehicles. that
You bring up a
contract.
very good point, that it is a good time to mention that, and I neglected to, but we have a great fleet department. They're very analytical. They identify where we have additional capabilities, and we sell sell, we contract those capabilities to other municipalities and monetize that. So we do have contracts with a number of surrounding municipalities, including Rock Hill, Webster Groves, Crestwood, Clayton, really that utilize our services, particularly for specialized types of equipment like Pierce fire trucks and so forth. So it's very beneficial to the city.
Councilmember Zimmer?
Yeah, just to clarify, from Councilmember Litzel's comment, Fleet Services does this analysis on all of our vehicles. Is that correct?
All assets, not just vehicles.
Right.
Correct.
Great, thank you.
Motorized assets.
I think we've discussed this before. We had talked about, previous vehicle purchases and
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
No, I completely understand. That wasn't my question. I was just wondering how much we would get on a trade-in and just clarifying that the trade-in is not considered in this purchase price.
hopefully we'll get the maximum dollar.
Yeah.
Thanks, Russ.
No problem.
Many other questions or comments? All right, roll call, please.
Mayor Griffin,
Yes.
Councilmember Lizzo,
Yes.
Councilmember Sears,
Yes.
Councilmember Wertz,
Yes.
Councilmember Zimmer,
Yes.
Councilmember Dewey,
Yes.
Councilmember Gibbons.
Yes.
Resolution passes. Resolution 99, 2023.
Mayor and Council, this is a resolution authorizing the Chief Administrative Officer to enter into a collective bargaining agreement with the local union number 2665 of the International Association of Firefighters, effective August 17th, 2023 through December 31, 2025.
Is there a motion for approval?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Any questions or comments?
I just would like to add, this has been a very professional process led by our Assistant Administrative Officer, Chief Administrative Officer, David Weidler, in working with the firefighters to identify an amenable approach and workable agreement. And we're proud to have accomplished that. And I'm proud of David.
David, very much. Assistant Chief Brian, you want us, do you have anything to add? You don't have to, just give you. Thank you. All right. Being no further comments, roll call, please.
Mayor Griffin,
Yes.
Councilmember Lizzo,
Yes.
Councilmember Sears,
Yes.
Councilmember Wertz,
Yes.
Councilmember Zimmer,
Yes.
Councilmember Dewey,
Yes.
Councilmember Gibbons.
Yes.
Resolution passes. Move on to city council reports. Anything to report?
Couple of things. I just wanted to recognize Kirkwood citizen Mike Cordy for the award that he got, a True Grit Award from the Missouri Trial Attorneys. And one quote in the article in the paper, it's for people in the field of workers' compensation that enjoy a good reputation for professionalism and ethics, grit, legal acumen, and legal lawly skills. So that's a nice thing for a Kirkwood resident. Even though he grew up in Webster, we want to recognize him. Last night, I attended an event at Muds Grove. The Kirkwood Historical Society was given a grant from the Daughters of the American Revolution from the Webster Groves chapter to fix the stairs on the front porch. And that's all been done and it's beautiful. And they had a wonderful event to recognize that organization and thank them. And if you guys haven't been there lately, the grounds look fabulous. There's just such a reinvigoration in the organization. And now they're going to be replacing all the decking on the front porch as well. So I think that's a nice thing to be happening in our city. The art exhibit was installed at the KPAC, and if you get a chance, go by and visit that. There's 3 new artists that work is being recognized there. And that's all I have.
Anything else from council? All right, Chief Administrative Officer report,
I have nothing to report, Mayor, this time.
City Attorney report,
I have nothing to report, Mayor.
City Clerk report.
Yes, Your Honor. I have one thing to report on is scheduled upcoming public hearings for September 7th, 2023. We have public hearing for establishing the property tax rates for the city of Kirkwood and also a public hearing for establishing the property tax rates for the Kirkwood Municipal Library. And that's all I have.
And I said this at the last meeting, just a reminder, we will have first reading on the tax rates the same night. Again, due to when we get information in and having to publish notice of public hearings, it just doesn't work. So it's one of those rare times we will have first reading the night of a public hearing. With that, the next meeting of a city council is 3 weeks from tonight, 7 PM on September 7th. This meeting is adjourned.